these lockdown periods here in Sydney and Australia. It's a global pandemic that we have with the lockdown. So what I decided was to take out my G27 from storage and test it out. Soon after, what I started to realize when playing Live for Speed, one of my favorite games, is that the steering wheel would gradually start to veer to the left. This was when I plugged in the G27 and it collaborated, and just turning it to the right each time, you could see that it veers even more to the left. So I looked at a couple of things online to see if I could, do basic troubleshooting, like restart the G27, leave it unplugged for a couple of minutes, plug it back in, update the drivers, all the standard troubleshooting. But however, that didn't work. I would recommend doing the most common, or trying the most common fix, which is checking whether the screws on the left motor are tight on the top and the bottom hand side. In my case, the top side screw was tight, but the bottom one was the one that was loose. So unfortunately, I had to go in and further disassemble the G27, and I had to remove the motor from the left hand side. So I've done that, and I've tightened the bottom screw and the top screw. If you did find play in that black plastic thing that's just behind the motor, and you've tightened the screws, I would recommend testing out the G27 again, seeing if it's improved the issue, if it's fixed the issue. If it happens, then that's when you should try the next thing. On the circuit board, just behind the motor, there's a sensor there. It's like a clear sensor, and in my case, what was happening was when I was turning the steering wheel to the right, each time I turn it to the right, for some reason, I don't know if this is specific to my wheel or it happens on all G27s, but that rotor would go inwards a bit, and it would become further away from the sensor. Hence, the sensor couldn't read those couple of holes, or the position that the steering wheel was in. So essentially, all I did was I've bent it in to be closer to that rotor, that wheel, and it's fixed the issue. To keep this video short and sweet, I didn't want to bore you out with the disassembly and assembly. I'm sure that there's a lot of videos online that will illustrate that. I've also put a link in the video description if you need assistance with taking the wheel apart, putting it back together. But all in all, that's basically it. Those two procedures there, or those two techniques that you can try. Be extra careful when you do push that sensor, because the last thing is you don't want it to snap for some reason and cause headaches for yourself. But other than that, it's pretty straightforward. Enjoy your time in lockdown through this pandemic, and happy racing.